is a second-order crypto effect here, where since for going back a decade now, my reporting was back in 2017, because of spiraling inflation of the bolivar, a lot of people had turned to cryptocurrencies, mining Ethereum and Bitcoin in their homes in order to just have a stable source of cash. But the other side of this is the fact that there are multiple reports that the government itself has been looking to evade sanctions by doing sales of oil in Tether, which they then move into Bitcoin. And so much of this market moves on sentiment. So even the promise that perhaps the U.S. government, when they came in, might seize these assets, hold on to it, that's a bull case for Bitcoin if you have a stockpile such as that that isn't being liquidated.
All right, very interesting stuff. Very quickly, because we got to go. Is it a tailwind for just Bitcoin or also Ethereum, Solana, and some of these other coins?
It's a rising tide lifts all ships. In fact, XRP has had outsized performance. And when you see one altcoin do particularly well, it really is one of these signs of a risk-on environment. All
right, Mackenzie Sigalos, great to see you as always. Thank you very much. All right, before we let you go, one more look at the futures right.
Welcome to Crypto Crossroads, the podcast where we dive into the wild world of digital assets, global politics, and the blurry lines between them. I'm your host, Billy John, and today we're tackling a bombshell story that's got the crypto community buzzing and international lawyers scrambling. We're talking about the United States government and military's potential confiscation of around 600,000 Bitcoin from Venezuela, estimated to be worth a staggering $60 billion at current prices. Is this a bold move for justice, or a blatant violation of international law? Stick around as we break it down in this special 5-minute episode. First, let's set the stage. Venezuela, under the regime of Nicolas Maduro, has been quietly amassing what some call a shadow reserve of Bitcoin. According to reports from intelligence sources and crypto analysts, this hoard tops 600,000 BTC. That's about 3% of all Bitcoin in existence. How did they get it? It's a mix of shady dealings, liquidating gold reserves into crypto to evade U.S. sanctions, striking oil for Bitcoin deals with allies like Iran and Russia, and outright seizing mining equipment from private operations within the country. The government even banned crypto mining last year, citing energy concerns, only to confiscate tens of thousands of rigs and repurpose them for state-controlled mining farms. At today's Bitcoin price hovering around $100,000 per coin, this stash is valued at roughly $60 billion, enough to rival the GDP of some small nations. Now, enter the U.S. Over the past few weeks, amid escalating tensions, the United States has launched military operations in Venezuela, leading to the reported capture of Maduro and the installation of a transitional government. Speculation is rife that U.S. forces, in coordination with the Department of Justice and military intelligence, are eyeing this Bitcoin reserve as a prize. Why? Proponents argue it's reparations for years of Venezuelan corruption, human rights abuses, and alleged support for terrorism. The U.S. has long sanctioned Venezuela, freezing assets and seizing funds tied to the regime. But confiscating a sovereign nation's crypto holdings? That's a whole new level. Here's where it gets dicey, and outright illegal under international law. Let's break down why this potential seizure is not just wrong, but a flagrant violation of global norms. First off, the United Nations Charter, specifically Article 2.4, prohibits the use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. If the U.S. is using military intervention as a pretext to grab these assets, that's aggressive force without UN Security Council approval or a legitimate self-defense claim. Venezuela's Bitcoin isn't floating in international waters. It's held in digital wallets controlled by a sovereign government. Seizing it amounts to expropriation, the taking of private or state property without fair compensation, which is barred under customary international law and treaties like the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. Think about the precedents here. The 1962 UN General Assembly Resolution on Permanent Sovereignty over Natural Resources affirms that nations have the right to control their own wealth and resources. Crypto might be digital, but it's still a resource Venezuela has accumulated, albeit controversially. Confiscating it without due process violates that sovereignty. Moreover, If the U.S. accesses these wallets through hacking, coercion, or forced transfers from captured officials, it could breach the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime, which the U.S. has ratified. We're talking about state-sponsored cyber intrusion into another nation's assets. That's not enforcement. That's digital piracy on a grand scale. But beyond the legalese, why is this so wrong? Morally and ethically, it sets a dangerous example. If the world's superpower can march in and snatch $60 billion in Bitcoin because it dislikes a regime, what's stopping China from doing the same to Taiwan's holdings, or Russia from targeting Ukraine's crypto reserves? It undermines the decentralized promise of Bitcoin itself. Satoshi Nakamoto envisioned a currency free from government overreach, not a tool for geopolitical plunder. This move could erode trust in the global financial system, scare off investors from holding crypto in volatile regions, and even devalue Bitcoin by flooding the market if the U.S. decides to sell off the seized coins, as they've done with smaller forfeitures in the past. Economically, it's short-sighted. Venezuela's people are suffering from hyperinflation and poverty. That $60 billion could fund humanitarian aid or debt relief under a new government. Instead, funneling it into U.S. coffers smells like neocolonialism, prioritizing American interests over international justice. And legally, any such confiscation would likely face challenges at the International Court of Justice or through arbitration under the World Trade Organization. The U.S. might claim it's seizing ill-gotten gains, but without transparent evidence linking every BTC to crime. It's just asset forfeiture on steroids, illegal under both domestic due process standards and international human rights law. In closing, folks, this isn't about cheering for Maduro or Venezuela's regime. It's about upholding the rule of law in a borderless digital age. If the U.S. proceeds with this confiscation, it risks isolating itself diplomatically and sparking a crypto arms race among nations. We need multilateral solutions, like UN-sanctioned asset freezes with oversight, not unilateral grabs. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments or on social media. Thanks for tuning into Crypto Crossroads. Stay vigilant, stay informed. Until next time, this is Alex Rivera signing off. 10 web pages.